One of the hardest challenge runs have just been completed. For years, many have attempted this challenge, and many have failed. No, I'm not talking about a ridiculous challenge like a gearless reverse controls run. I'm referring to the popular one life challenge in Borderlands 2, also known as a permadeath or hardcore run. You may have seen these challenge runs done on other games, and it might not seem all that difficult, but when it comes to Borderlands 2, that is a whole different story. Let's start off with the rules for one life in Borderlands 2. 1. If your character dies, you fail the run. Deaths cannot be avoided by quitting out the game and fight for your life, or if you're in the middle of falling off the map. If you do want to quit out the game, you need to make sure you grab a second wind, or make sure your character is in a safe, harmless location. 2. No major glitches can be used. This usually leans towards glitches that give you insane damage and invincibility. 3. Your one life run must be streamed live so there is proof of no cheating. 4. No passing down gear to your character. This means you cannot give your one life character powerful gear you farmed on other characters. 5. No bonus stats can be used. In this game there is bar, which gives you many bonuses in this game such as more damage, reload speed, and more. The playing field needs to be even since those bonus stats vary from person to person. Finally, for rule number 6, you must take your character from level 1 to level 80 overpowered 10, and beat all the main content at max level. Only a handful of people have completed the one life run for Borderlands 2, but only one person has beaten it with the hardest character. Meet Darksmoke. And don't worry about his creepy avatar. Darksmoke is well known in the speedrunning community in the Borderlands franchise. In fact, he holds records in many of the games. As of 4 months ago, he decided to take a break from speedrunning and focus on Borderlands 2 one life challenges. Being very familiar with the game, he decided to jump right in. For the first character, he picked Zero, and he crushed it. One life Zero, done. To flex, he even defeated some raid bosses. Next, he picked up Axton, and he crushed that too. One life Axton, done. Shortly after, he decided to try Salvador. You guessed it, challenge complete. Of course, he even took on some max level raid bosses too. You might ask yourself, is this guy cheating? Why haven't more people completed this challenge? Is the one life challenge really that easy? The answer, no. Darksmoke is just really good at the game. He has a history of speedrunning this game, so he knows how to adapt to the millions of situations you might encounter. With his head held high, he decided it was time to tackle the most difficult one life character, Krieg. It shouldn't be too bad, right? This Krieg died. A try right after, dead. Dead. This challenge is not an easy one on Krieg. The main reasons Krieg is so difficult is because he specializes on setting himself on fire for bonuses, and he has a snowballing effect to build up to max damage. Determined to complete the challenge, he started up another Krieg. Oh, I should mention, this is his 23rd attempt on Krieg, and he has sunk almost 700 hours trying to complete Krieg alone. The one life challenge is no joke when it comes to late game. In Borderlands 2, there are 3 playthroughs. Normal mode, True Vault Hunter mode, and Ultimate Vault Hunter mode. We call True Vault Hunter mode TVHM for short, and Ultimate Vault Hunter mode UVHM. The way this game works is you beat normal mode to unlock TVHM, and then you beat the game again on TVHM difficulty to unlock UVHM. As you progress through these playthroughs, the game gets more difficult. Once you've ran Krieg as much as Darksmoke has, normal mode and TVHM are a breeze. In fact, most people who regularly do one life challenges easily beat these first 2 playthroughs. For the sake of the video, I'll keep it short here since nothing crazy happens in the early game. Now, there are 3 things you want to follow when trying to complete a one life run. You need to route where you want to farm XP, pick up the strongest gear for your character, and use some of the best builds. For normal mode, there were no close calls. Darksmoke did the farming he needed and easily took down the warrior. The funny thing is that he didn't even spec into a real build. He was just using meta items like the Pimpernel Sniper Rifle, the Ladyfist Pistol, and others to crush the content. Jumping into TVHM, he will start at the beginning of the story and the game will get a little harder. Enemies have double the HP they had in normal mode, they do more damage, and tougher variants of enemies will start spawning. In order to safely get through TVHM, Darksmoke switches over to a full melee build. Krieg has a skill called Release the Beast, which can be unlocked at level 31. With this skill, you will not only get more melee damage, but you will also get full HP replenished on demand. The way this works is if you take a hit and drop below 1/3 of your HP, then you can activate your action skill to recover all your health. With this build, pushing through TVHM was almost as easy as the normal mode run. He farmed the XP he needed, picked up a few meta items, and safely pushed through the game. The warrior fell and now it was time for UVHM. UVHM is where most runs die. Enemies get even more HP, they hit a lot harder, and even more tough enemy variants spawn. On top of that, the slag element was something that had to be used in builds. For those who don't know, slag is a mechanic in Borderlands 2 that will debuff enemies. Once you debuff them, they will take triple damage for a short time in UVHM. Darksmoke knows that the melee build suffers a major weakness. When you're using Release to Beast mode, you can't apply slag to your enemies. You are locked in a state for a short time where you can only deliver melee damage. To fix this, he just has to put away the melee build and switch to a different build. What build would that be? Bloodbath. You might remember earlier I mentioned that Krieg has a snowballing effect to build up damage. That is the concept of the Bloodbath build. The way it works is that any damage you do will give you what is known as a stack of Bloodlust. These stacks will cap out at 100 stacks, and depending on how many stacks you have, it will determine how strong your other skill bonuses will be. Krieg's Bloodbath skill is what makes the build work. With this skill, any kills you get with splash damage will give you a massive gun damage boost. The best way to get splash kills is with grenade kills or rocket launcher kills. To summarize, stack Bloodlust to 100, get a grenade or launcher kill, and receive a big gun damage boost. Jumping back to the UVHM playthrough, Darksmoke jumps into a few DLCs, one of them being the Attack on Dragon's Keep DLC. This DLC holds one of the most powerful healing weapons, the Grog Nozzle Pistol. Just by holding the Grog, any damage you do will bring you back to full HP. On top of that, the Grog can apply the slag debuff and multiply projectile counts for your weapons. It is definitely something you want for UVHM. The only challenge that stands in the way of you getting the Grog is the 4 Kings. The Ladyfist B combo will take care of them, and now he can head to the next map. At this point, you talk to Claptrap and get yourself the Grog. Now he heads back to the main story and pushes through with minimal mistakes. I have to say it again, Darksmoke is really good at the game. He makes his way to the end and crushes the warrior, and at this point, it is time for the big level grind. In this game, max level is level 80. That means that he needs to farm 23 more levels before he can take on the endgame challenge. The way that he does it on Krieg is by Bloodsploding Bad Maw. For those who don't know, Bloodsplosion is a skill that causes enemies to explode on death. The overkill damage that you do to the enemy will determine how strong the explosion will hit for. To get a strong explosion to happen, Darksmoke uses the fastball grenade to achieve that. To get the fastball, you need to farm Bull, and this grenade is one of the best in the game. It hits for very high damage, which is perfect for this farm. Now, the grind begins. You spawn in, fastball the midgets on Bad Maw's shield, they bloodsplode, and Bad Maw dies. Rinse and repeat for all the XP. However, Darksmoke will stop farming XP once he hits level 64. The reasoning for this is because now it is time to farm Krieg's best class mod, the Legendary Reaper. With this class mod, Krieg will have much longer kill skill duration and higher bloodbath damage. This is a must-have class mod if you're going to take on the endgame. Unfortunately, this class mod only comes from a rare enemy variant, Tubbies. Not only are these enemies hard to find, but they also have a lot of different items they can drop. After a lot of farming, he found a Tubby and got the drop. Back to the XP grind we go. This time, he farmed Bad Maw all the way to level 80. Now, overpowered levels were up next. Before that can be done, item farming must be done to prepare for the challenges that lie ahead. We need to go pick up one of Krieg's best weapons, the Topnia rocket launcher. The Topnia is not only strong, but it's a great launcher for chaining the Bloodbath skill. Luckily, there is a great place to farm the Topnia over in the Fight for Sanctuary DLC. In the Writhing Deep map, there is a chest that will always spawn rocket launchers. Darksmoke farms here until he gets a good Topnia. After that, he picks up a B-Shield, Fastball, Unkempt Herald, Longbow Tesla, and a Rough Rider. That's it. Now he is geared up and ready to take on the overpowered levels. The overpowered levels, also known as the OP levels, are unlocked in the Digistruct Peak DLC. In order to unlock an OP level, you need to run through a difficult gauntlet of bosses and make it to the end. Getting OP levels is some of the most difficult content in the game. Enemies will level up higher while you do not. Not only will enemies have more HP and damage, but they will now take massively reduced damage from you. The OP levels are something that only a few people have gotten to in a one life challenge. In fact, this is where most runs die if you happen to make it this far. There are 10 OP levels that need to be unlocked, so the Digistruct Peak will need to be completed 10 times. Each time you go through it, more and more bosses will spawn, making it much more difficult. For the first peak runs, there really aren't that many bosses to take on. Going into it, you stack with a Tesla grenade, get a splash kill for Bloodbath, and spam the Topnia into the crowd. The only problem with this playstyle is that rocket ammo is very limited. Luckily, there is a nice trick that can be used. You can simply shoot an absorb shield with a low-leveled Logan's gun pistol. That will allow you to regenerate all of your rockets. Once you make it to the end, you defeat the boss and unlock the OP level. For the next OP level 1 run, same thing. Stack, activate bloodbath, and spam the enemy with a Topnia. While playing carefully, Darksmoke uses that strategy all the way up until OP level 5. For OP 5, you now have to take on the binary boss at the end of the peak. The issue is, the Topnia strategy doesn't work well on the binary boss. One strat that does work great is the Flacker shotgun. So we're off to get a Flacker. The easiest way to get one is over in the Torgue DLC. In that DLC, there are vendors that sell Torgue items, so they can be farmed for a Flacker. You have to buy them with a special currency known as Torgue tokens, and you need a lot of Torgue tokens. The fastest way to achieve that is to jump back down to normal mode and farm the Torgue DLC bar. Basically, pick up the bar room mission, kill the low-leveled enemies, turn in the mission for a few Torgue tokens, pick the mission back up, and rinse and repeat. After Darksmoke had enough tokens, he jumped back up to OP5 difficulty and farmed the Torgue vendor for a Flacker. After that, he farmed up a new Topnia and many other key items. It's time to head back to the peak. As usual, Darksmoke crushes this with minimal mistakes, and he makes his way over to the binary boss. He starts the fight by getting stacks using a Tesla grenade. Once he has 100 stacks, he kills the top half of the boss with a fastball. That will activate bloodbath and allow the Flacker to hit for massive damage. Binary boss down and OP6 unlocked. He does the same thing for OP6, OP7, OP8, OP9, and finally unlocks OP10. You might be thinking, great, the 1 life challenge is complete, right? Wrong. Darksmoke must now reset his UVHM playthrough and beat all the game's content on OP10 difficulty. Before he does that, he needs to go out and farm OP10 gear. For the first farm, he grabs a good B shield from Hunter Hellquist. Now, there is one boss in this game that has one of the best item farms. The thing is, that boss is a raid boss. Luckily, the raid boss Darksmoke plans to farm is really not that hard of a boss if you know how to fight them. The raid boss I'm referring to is Hatterax the Invincible. If you take down this boss, you get a lot of good loot. Hatterax is quite simple. Use the Ladyfist B combo to shoot the head until he falls over, and then shoot his mouth with a conference call B combo. That's all there is to it. Besides a lot of small gear upgrades, he was after the peak opener assault rifle. This weapon is important for taking on OP10 later on. It is a beast when it comes to damage output. After many hours of gear farming, it was time to reset UVHM and complete the final 1 life challenge. Very few people who run the 1 life challenge make it this far. Getting to this point on Krieg is a huge accomplishment on its own. In fact, Darksmoke is the only person to make it this far on Krieg. The only thing that stands in his way now is beating the main story on OP10, beating all the DLCs on OP10, and completing the OP10 peak run. Right off the bat, he heads to Tina DLC to get the Grog nozzle again. Without the Grog's healing power, this run would fall apart. Just like before, he uses the Ladyfist B combo to defeat the 4 kings, and the Grog was his. This time though, he stays in Tina DLC and decides to complete it. The gold golem wasn't too bad since there are kill skills in the arena, so he was able to activate bloodbath and spray him down with the herald. The next boss was the handsome dragon. Of course, the Ladyfist B combo took care of that too. Up ahead was one of the famous 1 life killers, the jumping puzzle. If you jump on these platforms on the wrong cycle, your character will be crushed into the ceiling and that will end the 1 life run. After a bit of practice, you can learn which cycles are safe. Darksmoke takes his time here to make sure he can cross on the right pattern. For the Hall of Skulls, he did get overwhelmed. Luckily, there was a spider nearby for a second wind. For the Sorcerer's Daughter, he also used the Herald to take care of that, and only one boss was left in this DLC, the Handsome Sorcerer. Kill skills were present during the fight, and the peak opener took him down. 1 DLC down, many to go. At this point, Darksmoke decides to head back to the main story and take that on. Little Boom was used to activate Bloodbath, and that made Big Boom easier to take down. For Captain Flint, he had to make sure he kept Teslas out as a means to stack and heal. The Herald takes care of him too. Badmaw took quite a few shots, but eventually he fell. Warden was disrespected with the Topnia, and it was off to Wilhelm. Using Surveyors for Bloodbath, Wilhelm didn't last very long. Just like most bosses so far, the Gluttonous Thresher falls, Bloodwing falls, and the Bunker falls too. After losing 22 different Kriegs in 1 life, it was clear that Darksmoke knew what he was doing at this point. He was playing Krieg perfectly. Not only was he pushing through OP10 with little trouble, he has also barely went in a fight for your life for the whole entire playthrough. Even Saturn couldn't survive against Krieg. All that was left in the main story was Jack and the Warrior. As expected, Darksmoke takes them out. OP10 main story, done. At this point, he needs to farm Warrior for a shot conference call. Without it, the Son of Chromarex boss would be a pain to take down later on. After a little moonshot farming, he was finally able to get one. All that was left for the challenge was the rest of the DLCs. To relax a little, he decides to take on the Headhunter DLCs next. Wedding DLC, done. Water Gobbler DLC, complete. Mercenary Day DLC, finished. Bloody Harvest DLC, destroyed. As for Wham Bam DLC, vengeance achieved. What I mean by that is the Krieg run that died before this one was lost to Son of Chromarex. Learning from his mistake, Darksmoke made sure that didn't happen again. All that remained were the 4 campaign DLCs and the OP10 peak run. He started off with the Hammerlock DLC since that one also killed one of his previous Kriegs. Woundspike deflects a Topnia shot back, and that puts him into fight for your life. After all that hard work, he died. Nah, I'm just kidding, he got a second win. Drakenstein was another boss that killed a previous Krieg, so he knew he had to be really careful here. The fight starts off a little shaky. After some careful plays, the boss goes down. That marks this DLC as complete. Scarlet DLC was next, and this DLC went pretty well. The OP10 boats are known here for being terrible to destroy. To safely do this part, you can launch your boat up to Scarlet's boat. From there, you can look down and snipe them from a distance. Big Sleep and Sandman die before they know what hit them. Hurley is, well, Hurley, no challenge there. As for Roscoe, kill skills are present so the boss is wiped out. The Leviathan is a different story though. The beginning of the fight is slow because there are no kill skills around. After doing small bits of damage, the worms finally start spawning. Darksmoke stacks up, activates Bloodbath, and uses the Topnia to finish the fight. Another DLC down. The next DLC was Torg DLC. This DLC is known for having some tough enemies and bosses. The beatdown map is famous for ending some one-life runs. Luckily, there is a somewhat safe route you can take through this map to avoid most of the enemies. Using these spider ants for Bloodbath, Pete doesn't stand a chance. For Motor Mama, Darksmoke lures some enemies over for Bloodbath. The fight takes a turn as he gets hit by a rocket. He is able to second win, but he does go down again. With luck on his side, there was one more second win in sight. He gets it and finishes off the fight. For Piston's Blimp, the best strat is to sit back and use the Lady Fist speed combo to finish off the boss. Going into the arena for this fight is bad because all second wins are flying enemies. Now it's time to take on the final boss in this DLC, Vatasaurus. This boss is known for being one of the worst. He has bullet deflection, a lot of HP, and can hit you for insane damage. In order to safely beat this boss, a little cheese strat can be used. You can sit outside the arena door, peek at the boss, shoot, and retreat. This strat results in a very slow boss kill, but it is safe. The weapon of choice is going to be the Hive for this one. Darksmoke was able to pick up one from Saturn in normal mode. Obviously, a level 28 Hive would do nothing to an OP10 boss. The way to fix that is just by putting on the B-Shield. That will give you the amplified damage you need to beat the Vatasaurus. The Hive B combo will still barely do any damage, but it is better than nothing. For the next painful hour, the Hive was used to slowly defeat the Vatasaurus. Thankfully, Piston was super easy to take out right after. With Torg DLC complete, that leaves Fight for Sanctuary DLC for last. This DLC is the hardest of the 5 campaign DLCs, so precautions have to be taken everywhere. It is known for having some of the hardest enemies in the game too. If you don't take out the new Pandoran enemies fast, they will likely one-shot all of your HP. For Uranus, Darksmoke hides behind cover and uses the Herald to slowly take the win. For Cassius, the fight starts off slow since there are no kill skills nearby. Later in the fight, Tendrils will spawn in, allowing for some Bloodbath. Cassius down. The only boss left in this DLC was Hector. This guy is a very difficult boss to take down. There will be a lot of kill skills in the arena, but surviving blows was the main priority. Hector will release attack after attack, so focusing on your HP is a must. Once you're somewhat safe, a Herald can be used to whittle down his HP. Just like that, the final campaign DLC was done. The only challenge left was the OP10 Digistruct Peak. For the next focus-heavy hour, this is what happened.
Did I, Did I just do that? I did it.
After over 80 hours since the Krieg started, Darksmoke pulled off the impossible. The world's first one life Krieg completion on OP10. Thank you for watching.